It is so sad, but I didn't even know I was doing it
Right.
until I was like, oh, I do this to cope. I do this to fit in because I long to fit in, and I'm very social and I love people. I love their strengths. I love their beauty. I love everything about people. And so I needed to be something different to fit in. So I
Right.
did.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
And if we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
And you've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Angela, thank you so much for joining us today. I am super excited to talk to you about what you do and your non-for-profit. But before we get into your company and what your non-for-profit does, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. So I'm Angela Taylor, and I'm a mom, and I'm an artist. I'm a writer, a photographer, and I consider myself a community helper. And that has a lot of hats, but I love to support my community.
Awesome. And you founded, in an effort to support your community, you founded a non-for-profit company.
I did, yes.
Can you tell us what that is?
Sure. It's a legal charity here in Canada, and it's called Inspire Community Outreach. And we support youth and families specifically that include children that have neurological differences and mental health concerns, ages 3 to 29. So just filling the social services gaps. And I started that because of my lived experience, growing up in foster care and not having the services that I needed. And then, raising my sister after our mom passed away when she was 1, just loving my sister and seeing some of the same struggles that I had kind of emerging into her and her beauty. And then raising my own biological children, 3 kids, one of whom has autism.
Okay. 3 to 29. That's a big gap to call somebody a child, or youth.
Yeah.
But I think as when you're talking about neurological disorders and things like that, I think your kids might live with you forever, right? So,
Yes.
why 3? Why do you start at 3 years old?
We found that most of the kids that we're working with are diagnosed or are starting to have, behavioral expressions that are concerning after age 3.
Okay.
So before age 3, we were very inclusive. And if a family has multiple children or they have questions, we want to support them. But
Right.
here in Canada, we have actually special services for children under the age of 5. And so the
Okay.
services that we would offer before 3 and after 3 are just a little bit different. And actually,
Okay.
the reason that we go to 29 is because here in Canada, we talk about youth and development of youth. And the prefrontal cortex and brain development actually stops for the neurodivergent at 29. So we
Right.
thought that seems like a good idea. Let's do to 29.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I've read between 25 and 29 is whereas your brain is finally finished fully developing. I think I was probably 40, maybe a little
Yeah.
older before mine
I
was
feel-
done.
I feel like that's about right for me as well. I'm like, I feel like I'm almost there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I need some more
And then
days.
you start growing, right? Once
Yeah.
it's all done, then you start really growing as a person.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then so neurological disorders, and I read trauma in there as well. Congratulations for going through the foster care system. And I'm not familiar with the foster care system in Canada. I assume it's not that different than America. People are people all over the world.
Not great. It's not a great situation.
Right.
So I survived and I'm here and I use every bit of privilege and energy that I have to change things for youth so they don't have to have the walk that I had.
That is so amazing and admirable. Thank you so much for doing that for the world. It's very, very important. I'm super lucky that I've never been in the foster system, but I've definitely been very close to a lot of people in the foster system, and I've mentored some children that were in state facilities for extended periods of time, and that the state facility is not a good place at all. I mean, the foster care system is better, but not significantly better. I guess that's all relative on who your foster parent is. So
Absolutely. There's lots of great ones out there.
amazing. If somebody, so are you? And I'm not really familiar with the non-for-profits. Is it a global non-for-profit or a Canadian non-for-profit?
It's Canadian. So we're
Okay.
under the CRA as a charity, and we primarily stay in Manitoba. That's where
Okay.
we travel all of our province, which is quite large.
Right.
And then we do trainings all over the place. I'm doing this amazing podcast. There's lots of things that we do to support people all over
Right.
the world, but primarily our clinical team is in Manitoba.
Okay. And you have tell us a little bit more about in depth of what the company does to support. You said you got you said you have clinical technicians?
Yeah, I have clinicians and like therapists, so social work, psychotherapy, behavior support in a strength-based, solution-focused way. We really celebrate neurodivergence, both the areas that are uniquely and passionately strong, and the areas that, for myself, I'm 5 times neurodivergent, and I'm never going to have the strengths, of some of my colleagues. Like, they're uniquely skilled, right? We're
Right.
all uniquely skilled. And
Yes.
so the work in community is primarily advocacy, it's assessment, so supporting individuals to understand it's not just brain wiring differences or neurodivergence, it's also your lived experience of that, which is actually impacted mostly by your environment and your relationships. So if we adapt your environment to have a lot of positive inputs and more positive inputs than negative inputs, you're going to be stable. If you have more negative inputs than positive inputs, you're not going to be stable. So for me, it's about inviting awareness and this idea of neurodivergence as a strength and honoring the areas that are not strong and may never be strong. So how do we support that person?
And that's okay, because they have
Yep.
different strengths and different talents, right? Different outlooks on life across the board.
Exactly.
All right.
So that's a little bit different, right? That's a different perspective that, understanding that, by changing environments, you can actually learn to care for yourself and have a very different life,
That is unfortunately very hard for most people to see, but it is everybody's choice,
Yes.
right? I remember I was having a conversation with my daughter. She's 15, and we were talking about this, and I don't have a horse in this rodeo, the Roe versus Wade decision that just happened in the United States. And
Yeah.
I said, well, it's really going back to the states' rights in the United States. And I said, the person could go to another state if they needed that service. And she said, what if they can't? And I said, well, that's a person's decision if they can't. Obviously, youth have a different set of circumstances than adults, but everybody has a choice on what they're going to do, but not everybody sees that they have a choice, right? Is it a neurological deficiency not seeing that you have a choice in the matters?
In terms of systemic issues, sometimes the systems, at least in Canada, sometimes they invite more choice, and sometimes they remove all of our choice, where we feel like there are no options, and then that will affect our mental health in a really negative way, because we all have a need to know that we have power and control in our lives, and we have accessible resources, for example. And when that feeling is removed, that's when mental health distress comes. So in addition to that, being neurodivergent, I see only what I see. And sometimes until more information is presented to me, there are these 45 more choices or whatever, I don't actually see that.
Right.
And I would say, 17 to 20% of the population is neurodivergent. And so when we think about the community,
I think that's a low statistic. I think it's more like 25 or higher.
that would be really interesting. I would love to see some statistics on that.
I recently read that 25% of Americans have some kind of neuro difference.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited to read that.
Yes, I'll
Please
look
do.
it up for sure and
Thank
share that
you.
with you. Yeah.
Even as of a few years ago, some of the meta-analysis was saying 15%, and I was thinking that's real low to me. I know this community, I love this community, and I see a lot of colleagues, a lot of brilliant people who kind of show me that they're neurodivergent. Either they have a diagnosis, or they tell me, or my brain goes, I recognize a lot of the things you're doing, right now as being familiar to me, perhaps
Right.
as neurodivergent. So I'm excited to hear that it might be 25. That makes me happy.
One in four
Actually,
people, right? That's a huge number that we're and now that's a huge spectrum, right? I have a nonverbal autistic son. He's, but he's totally capable of living a healthy, normal, somewhat normal life. I mean, for him,
sure.
it's going to be normal, but he's the happiest kid I've ever met in my life.
I
Always
love it.
giggling, right? Just always a happy, as long as he's got something to jump on, he's a happy boy. So, like, it changes your perspective on the world whenever you, um, or deeply love somebody that is very neurologically different than
Yeah,
the norm, right? And nonverbal, I think, is on that spectrum of very different.
for
Um,
sure.
so
And
it is.
their experience of their brain differences is so wonderful and interesting to me because I present as neurologically typical, and it wasn't until I was getting my son diagnosed, and I was raising my sister, and I was like, wow, like she's really wired different, and people are confirming that, and my son, wow, he's really wired differently, and then I was like, they're doing all the same things I'm doing,
Right.
so I feel like I'm the same. And then going through the diagnostic process when I'm, in midlife, and people are like, yeah, like you have a variety of things. So like I have ADHD combined type, I have, complex PTSD, I have dyslexia, I have chromesthesia, which is super cool. It's like the coolest neurodivergence in my
What is
opinion you
it?
can have. It's where I actually see and feel like music.
Okay.
So I see shapes and colors, and
Yep.
sometimes it's like waves, sometimes it's whatever. But it's a wonderful joy to experience that. The other side is that the biggest way to soothe yourself, let's say sound, can also be your biggest trigger because your brain is wired extra sensitive in that one area.
Right.
So sound also is one of my biggest triggers, but you can't have it all, right?
Well, and as a child, specifically as a child growing up, not understanding what you're seeing, not understanding what you're feeling, and
Yeah,
not being able to communicate it with people that understand what's going on inside your brain is got to be very challenging, especially in your environment where
it's dangerous.
the foster parents that I have been able to spend time with definitely cared and had love for the kids that they were caring for, but they did not love those kids like they were their own, right? They cared and they did their best that they could, but most of the time, at least in my experience, that the foster family is not very well equipped financially or mentally to handle what they're doing. It's just
Yeah.
my current. Not that most biological parents are fully capable of raising their child to the best
Yeah.
capability either, but
I would have liked a
it's different.
manual. Like, I would have really appreciated a manual for my children. That would have been really helpful for me. I mean, technically, my children are the manual. They're like, no, mom, this is wrong. This is how to do it. I've been so fortunate. I know lots of foster parents who those are their children. Like they would, and they're not paid well, and they don't have enough resources or
Right.
support, and they still rock it out. It's actually amazing to me. But part of being a kiddo and struggling, and then even honestly, like I was partnered for 16 years, and throughout that entire time, I had no idea how much I was masking. So this idea of like, I never fit in, like from childhood, I never fit in, no matter with my own family, wherever I was, I just didn't feel like I belonged or was seen at
Right.
all. And then you try to be something else.
Yeah.
So
That's so
then
sad.
it is so sad, but I didn't even know I was doing it
Right.
until I was like, oh, I do this to cope. I do this to fit in because I long to fit in, and I'm very social, and I love people. I love their strengths. I love their beauty. I love everything about people. And so I needed to be something different to fit in. So I
Right.
did. And now obviously I don't, but I did that for a long time.
Right.
So
Well, it's
understanding
a
masks.
strength, right? It's just strength, a chameleon. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I do it pretty regularly. I enjoy it. It lets me navigate the world in a way that I don't think other people can. Right. So I get to see all kinds of really, really cool stuff from, I can talk to the hobo on the side of the corner and have a really insightful conversation, and I can talk with state senators and stuff like that. So I have a wild divergence of people that I can talk to across all the spectrums, which is, I think, is
Yeah.
super fun, right? But it can be exhausting and tiring,
Yeah.
and all of those things on a body. So if you're in
Absolutely.
Canada and you need help, how would a family come about finding you if they needed help?
Inspirecommunityoutreach.ca. And I also, like, in terms of me and my passions, I write books. So I have Forever on Fire, a love letter to never fitting in, and I'm an artist. So I, do art with people and families
Yeah.
online as well. And neurodivergence or neurodiversity in the workplace is something that I've been very passionate about over the last year or so. But people can go to our website at Inspire, and there's just a link to register. And whether that's, like, we do trainings all over. So we'll train
Right.
families, we'll train frontline staff, professors, educators, social workers, and that's the best way to help the most people. So it can be an organization. They can email us at info@inspirecommunityoutreach.ca. And we love working with people. We love getting to know people and celebrating their fantasticness.
Wonderful. And if somebody was watching the show and they're like, I dig what you're doing and I want to help you out, I'm assuming they can also go to the same website and make contributions or volunteer time, volunteer resources and stuff like that.
Absolutely. We have a lot of opportunities, and you can say, like, I want this money to go to this program. I want to feature, this neurodivergence for children. Like, they can actually contribute in the ways that they feel is the most meaningful. So we absolutely do that as well. Volunteering, whatever skills people have. Some people are really skilled at media, right? Some people are really skilled at, creating documents or research. And so we have opportunities for that as well.
Wonderful. I'm so happy that we got to meet today and talk about these things. On that spectrum, and like, I know that this is Clicks and Bricks and we like to talk about business, but I think what we're talking about, and as neurodivergence becomes more clear to people, they're going to be entering the workforce, right?
Absolutely.
More and more people with autism, people suffering from traumas, people suffering with mental health issues are going to be entering the workforce, especially in a time where we're light on staff worldwide, and maybe it's an opportunity for some of these people to kind of come out from the dark and start working. And I've got my own opinion, but what's the most important thing that a young person needs to get if they have some kind of neuro difference?
For me, this idea of self-acceptance and self-compassion, and then finding the words to say what we do need to be accommodated for, right? So for me, I need a flexible work hour. I can't work a 9 to 5 the same way that another person can. I often get a lot of energy in the evening, and I really enjoy producing a lot of information and a lot of work in a very short period of time.
Right.
I think about it all day, and then I get, a lot of hours done in a very short period of time. It's that hyper focus that a lot of neurodivergence has. So part of it is the workplace knowing what to ask, and then we finding the words of what we need, what we would like to be successful. So
Right.
I call it, like, neurodivergence affirming, right? Like, I can say I live as a neurodivergent woman. I have, mental health concerns. I live with them, and having like a healthy workplace that's invitational, that they can say, hey, I need a day. I'm going to make up that time on Saturday. Like, those conversations feel really safe, when the foundation is there and the structure is there. So that's what I see in terms of all of these great neurodivergent people. We are in the workforce. We're rocking it out. We've got children also at home that are neurodivergent. My autistic son is my biggest inspiration sometimes.
Right.
And so knowing that we're already in the workplace and that we want to, have these big goals of, like, I want to try all the things. The percentage of success is the same for everybody, I feel like, for the most part.
Okay.
But because I try more things, sometimes it looks like I'm more successful than the average person. I'm not. I'm just a normal girl. But don't be afraid to try.
Well, the world only sees your success. They don't see how many times you failed to get there.
That's so true. So it's kind of deceiving, knowing that everybody looks pretty shiny on social media. That's a big thing too. Understanding your inputs. Like if you're a sensitive person and you take in a lot of your environment, maybe working from home is your accessibility. Maybe you need to listen to the same song on repeat 100 times in a day. I don't know. But finding things that work for you to help you be successful and create that output with the things that you're passionate about, that's beautiful.
Right. Mm-hmm. Awesome. For me, or for our family at least, the diagnosis was huge. Having a clinical, a medical, and an educational diagnosis for our son was, at least in America, the catalyst to get additional services.
Yes.
Without the diagnosis, there's no additional services, right? It's just, oh, he's just a weird kid, and send him through regular school, and he'll figure it out. But once we had the diagnosis, we were able to truly advocate for him in a different way, right? And that diagnosis wasn't cheap at all. Like it was I think it was over, after insurance, it cost us $5,000 out of pocket, I think, to do it the way that we did it. So, we've got a small charity in Missouri that helps people pay for that diagnosis specifically, because that I see so many families in rural areas that can't afford to get a diagnosis, and they're forced to send their children through regular school district, which I think is just a travesty. It's so bad that if they need a diagnosis, they should be able to get the diagnosis and not cost as much money as it does. And understand why it does, because it was a 2-day event for us of observation. Yeah. So
I wish that it was more accessible, and I also wish that services were accessible, so that when families have a child who's not feeling happy, they're feeling really angry and really sad and scared, that families have, professionals that can come in and hold space and provide resources. And, and I wish that Inspire was everywhere. I wish clinicians had these skills, and my team is amazing. I wish that everybody had these skills to help families.
Yes, and you will get there. This is where you're at today. So you're going to keep going and keep moving. How many clinicians do you have on staff?
We have 4 on staff, and we're hiring 2 more in addition to myself. Yeah.
All right. So keep growing. That's all it takes, right?
Absolutely.
And this is all paid for through donations?
Yes, it's donations, grants. We're working with the government so that we can start getting some funding through there, because again, even if it's, $25 subsidized or $120 an hour, that's a lot of money when you need weekly care or more for a period of time for stabilization. So we are working really hard with funders to make sure that these families get the care that they need.
Right. And so let's go way up the chain. I love talking about the way adolescent side, because I think that's where most of the problems are diagnosed and kind of started to be treated, and the best success. But if we're going to be talking about the business side of it, let's ramp up to 21 years old, right? What kind of services are you offering to that 18 to 29-year-old? Are you helping them get gainful employment and things like that?
So the way that we found the most successful is we do have organizations who specialize in employment. And so for us, it's about navigation. How does this one, amazing 21-year-old even learn about that? Who do they call? What do they say? What is the paperwork like? Can we provide an advocacy letter or support them in that process? And then how do we help their parents get to a place where, that grief and trauma of working within a system that's so broken, how do they process that? What kind of support do they need to allow their child to become independent? Because that's a whole other thing.
Yes.
So it's the entire family unit who needs that care and support. We also do assessments. So I don't provide diagnostic assessments, but I do a different type of neural complexity report, which talks about how do you adapt environment, including relationships, to invite stabilization and reduce symptoms. And so I provide those types of assessments also for any age. I work in my private practice to do over 29 as well. But that's necessary. People need to learn what's happening in their brain and their neurology.
Right. So for a parent of somebody that's neurally different, and my son is an eloper.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I mean, at the age of 5, 6 years old, I know that he's had over 100 police chasing him at a time, with fire departments and everything, because he escapes, and it's scary for a parent to lose their child and show up to a place so you carry that with you everywhere you go, and you're always constantly worried about it. So you also provide services to those parents.
Yes.
And is that like just a lot of talk therapy?
Sometimes it's talk therapy. Sometimes, again, it's like resources, advocacy,
Right.
lots of things like ours. There's a lot of trauma from like being in a system that's not made for us, or being in a world not made for us. In a different type of world where everybody knows our child and they see them walking away, they would intervene. But that's just not the world we live in, right? So that
Right.
idea of being alone, so connecting that parent with other parents who understand, is a really big support. And then really good quality therapists to process the trauma and create a foundation of safety for that individual to grow and their child to grow as well.
Right. I've been doing a lot of research on trauma lately. I'd say for the past 4 or 5 months of my life, I've been a deep dive on trauma. And the thing that I've recently learned, and I didn't realize this, and I'm 47 years old, and I didn't just really realize this year, is that it doesn't matter what the trauma is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no trauma that's better or worse than any other trauma. That it's traumatic to the person it happened. If it's, I lost a pencil, or I got rear-ended on my way to work today, they're both traumatic events to those people, and they carry it similarly. It scars their body, it scars their brain, and it changes who they are as a person moving forward. If they don't know how to deal with it, and they don't know how to let it go and be in the past, and they continue living in the present. And that's,
Yeah.
I'm 47. I just learned this. So
Congratulations.
I think I think that's a pretty big concept, and I don't think a lot of people understand that.
I agree with you. And I also want to plant the seed that everybody goes through life and is traumatized. Everybody. That's something that we all have in common. And, I might have, more extreme, or someone else might have less extreme. It's still valid. It's still real. And it affects us the same way. Also, whenever you're ready, let's say it takes you 2 years to prepare to get therapy or support. That's still an investment into yourself for 2 years while you're getting ready. And then now, whether you're 15 or you're 50 or 100, you can process that trauma through trauma processing like EMDR or brain spotting or a variety of other ways. So it's never too late.
Are you trained in EMDR?
I'm not, but I go for my brain spotting training in September.
Have you ever had the EMDR? I'm considering it.
I have. So EMDR and brain spotting, they're both really effective, very, very effective actually. And they're done in a similar way. The roots are actually together.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards brain spotting because I've experienced both. And I found the brain spotting very, very effective for me.
Okay.
EMDR was also very effective, but both are just excellent. So you should.
I just learned about EMDR.
You should. It's so good. I think
literally, I think 2 days ago I was reading. I'm almost finished with the book called "The Body Keeps the Score."
Yes.
And,
so good.
And I'm just in the chapters about EMDR right now, and it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I also want to plant the seed that, like a neurodivergent mind, they estimate approximately 10 times the neural pathways for some of the neurodivergent. So if you're 10 times more pathways and less gray matter, and you're taking in 10 times more of your environment, why wouldn't you be more traumatized than somebody else who takes in 10 times less? But also, now when you're ready to get healed, when you're ready, when that could be tomorrow or 10 years from now, it's all excellent. Wouldn't the healing also be 10 times as fast?
Oh,
maybe.
Could be. Yes.
Could be. You never know.
If you can picture your brain in that way, or your mind and your being, or whatever you are that makes you the you, you can visualize it in that fashion, then I think it could be expedited when you're ready to do it. So
when you're ready.
Yes. Do you think that, the book clearly states that whenever you have trauma and you relive it, that you physically feel the pain of that time? Do you think that's, and obviously we'll never know because you're not going to be neurodivergent and not neurodivergent in the same lifetime.
Exactly.
But theoretically, a neurodivergent person with more pathways would experience that trauma more intensely.
We do. And even so, there's some research on ADHD that if, for example, if I watch something that's violent, I don't have just one part of my brain light up. It actually is a full brain, which is a full body and nervous system response.
Yes.
So part of my plan for myself is I don't watch like realistically violent things. I just don't watch
anything violent on TV.
I can't do it. I can't watch the news. I can't watch movies that are realistically violent. Because, and honestly, I'm like, wow, if I would have known that when I was younger, wow, that would have been really cool, because our neurology is consistent through a lifespan for the most part, right? My sensitivities, my body charge, my need for connectivity, it's always been high. All of them has been high. And if I learn to manage that with compassion and understanding, I'm going to be much more well than if I'm like, oh, I should just not be this way. You know,
I managed it through armor for most of my life, and I still manage it with armor. But you know, we slowly take pieces off and let the world end, and that's okay, right?
Yeah,
so
that is okay.
yes.
I ended up literally writing a book about all the things that I was most ashamed of, and I was like, I'm writing a book on it. It's not mine anymore. I'm giving it away. I'm no longer masked. It was the most therapeutic experience of my life. You know, all the armor gone. I don't want to carry it anymore. It doesn't serve me.
So beautiful. Congratulations for all of that. That is inspiring. And I think that, you know, that we're not here to talk about neurodivergence or anything like that, but if we're here to help people that want to open a business,
yes,
or if they're in a business and they're struggling to overcome something, you know, there's a lot of people. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and I bet you if every one of them was diagnosed or went through it, they'd be on the spectrum. Most of them would be on the spectrum somewhere, right? Yeah. So I think it's important to have these conversations and let people know that haven't taken that chance, that want to, that are discounting themselves because they're different, that they shouldn't do that, that they should take this difference as their power and really go for it. If they truly want to, they can. I think they can.
I believe they can. If you would have told me even 5 or 10 years ago, like, Angela, you're going to be, you know, consulting and starting clinical teams all over Canada, I'd have laughed in your face. It's what I always wanted to do, but it felt so big, so hard. And then all I did was, like, I planned, okay, one day I want to do this. And then I planned backwards. So what do I do today to invest into that future? And that means trying different things. It means reaching out to people. It means, you know, branding myself and having, you know, social media. And for some people, that's not what they choose, and that's okay. But for me, to get to be known for helping people, that's what I needed. So having kind of a goal in mind, a very specific goal, think about it, plan it, visualize it, be in that future, imagine, right? And then write out the steps to get there. And there might be 1,000 steps, but there is a joyful success. There's a joyful celebration that can happen at every step.
Every step.
Right. And so celebrate yourself. Like, wow, you know what? I got that call back. Oh, it was only one call. You know what? It was one call.
Right.
Congratulations. Wonderful. You know what? I wrote that proposal. Did you get it? Nope, but I wrote it. Congratulations.
Yes.
And that's what I do for my team, and that's what I do for myself and for my own business, and then the charity that I started. I actually have 2 businesses. One is my art business, and one is like my writing and my neurodiversity in the workplace. But for me, it sounds terrible. It's not about money. I know that's the wrong thing to say, but for me, it's the journey. The journey is the success. That's my definition of success. Is I'm enjoying it. I'm learning. I'm completing things. I have actionables. I'm feeling good about that. And the money's a bonus. The money's a bonus. So I always feel successful, even if the outcome isn't quite how I imagined it. You know? Right.
You're working towards a goal. You might not have hit that goal, but
I'm getting closer.
I recall if you shoot for the moon, at least you'll end up amongst the stars. Right?
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
It's okay. Yes.
Absolutely. You know, and like I call it pivoting. So like a recalibration. So like I'm going in this direction and I'm like, oh, that was a bump I was not expecting. Wow, that is an opportunity for learning and growth. Wow, that was a doozy. So what do I do now? You know, you kind of have a plan of, maybe you have a mentor. You know, if this happens, if there's a stressful thing, what do I do for myself? How do I care for myself? And what do I do next? I'm really thankful. I have amazing mentors. So I will meet with them and I'll say, this is this problem I'm up against. What do I do? And we'll brainstorm it together. And it reinvigorates me. Because the neurodivergent, being wired differently, most of the entrepreneurs that I know are. Like, we're innovators. That's the neurodivergent people, brain wiring differences. We are innovators, and we're the ones that are, we're brave, right? To start all these new things. So planning ahead for, we're really good starters. We're sometimes not as good as, at the finishing part. We're sometimes
that's why you hire people.
That's exactly it. Exactly.
Like, you hire the people that, when if you look at a business like any sporting event, right? Not everybody's a great batter, not everybody's a great pitcher, not everybody's a great catcher. But you hire great catchers, you hire great pitchers, and you hire great batters.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And I don't understand why people don't think like that when they're hiring for a company a lot of times. They think that everybody should be, I know a lot of business owners like, man, if they just had the passion that I have, they're never going to have the passion that you have for your business. It's never, ever going to happen. So you're never going to hire another you. Never.
They don't exist.
Right.
And it's not meant to.
You build your team the best that you can with the people around you, and you just move forward, and you should celebrate those differences.
Absolutely. And celebrate the people that are supporting you, reach the goals that you have with gratitude first. They're never going to be you. Great. I love that. Because you know what? The world will need one me. Okay.
I don't think the world should have, I'm not sure. It should not have more than one of me for sure. And I might be a little too aggressive for it sometimes anyway. So
we're hungry for our goals. Like, I'm hungry for supporting community, and I'm never stopping. I'm never going to give up on the goals that I have. Are the community has said they want to be stable, they want to be healthy, they want to be happy. Okay, I can fill a need there. I have all my skills kind of condensed into this. How do I take this and make it magic? That's all I have is this. I have all these great people who are gifted at so many things.
You have so much more than that. But
well, thank you.
That was way too small of a box that you gave
yourself. It's a small. My focus is just like, how do I increase capacity, right? Because I'm just one person.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about this beautiful world with all of these billions of people, these unique and individuals that should be cherished and have all kinds of appreciation for them. Each person's unique, and each person has their own passion and skills. And so, for example, my focus is smaller, and I have a lot to offer, but it's really condensed. But with other people having different skills than I do, who have more of a focused view, I have a global view. They got a focused view. That's what's going to make the goals come to fruition. That's what's going to finish these projects and plans. And that's really my part's maybe the beginning. I invigorate people, but I can't do anything. I honestly, I believe it. I cannot finish the projects that I want to finish without all of the other people's skills and strengths.
No.
Like a puzzle.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Awesome. So we're running a little short on time, but I could probably have a conversation with you for days about all of this stuff. Is there any support? So if we're going to talk about transitioning from youth to adulthood and being self-sufficient, which I believe is really important for everybody on the planet, is to feel self-sufficient, that I can take care of myself. And it comes with a certain amount of pride and integrity and all those things. But the world hasn't been prepared to employ neurally different people in a lot of cases, with stemming, with outbursts, with things of that nature. Is there a support group for managers of businesses and bosses and owners that they could have conversations with somebody to open up that realm to say, hey, I'm passionate about this. I would like to help this out. But man, if I can't be in a sales meeting and have this 24-year-old kid start stimming in the middle of $100 million presentation.
I understand. That's something that I'm very passionate about, is helping organizations find solutions that work for everybody. And then maybe the conversation is like, what does this amazing person have to offer? What are their skills and strengths? And how do we help them feel safe to be themselves And maybe the option, maybe it's even their solution is that they don't attend that one meeting. Maybe, right?
Or
And
you advocate for them before that meeting starts and say, hey, this is a wonderful person. And in an effort to keep them from masking up on you, they might have to stem.
Yep. Or they might
Right?
need to, they need
And if they mask up, guess what? They're not going to be nearly as brilliant.
It's absolutely true. And
Right?
isn't it interesting how we're coming to a place where we're having these conversations? Isn't that interesting?
I love it. This
I
is
love
where
it.
we should be. This is exactly
I love
like
it.
out of all the places in the universe to be right now, I feel like this is the conversation to be having.
Yeah.
with-
Because
with
there's
the
a
world.
lot of brilliance. Yeah, there's a lot of brilliance out there. And how do we accept and include and provide accessible and meaningful support to all kinds of people? Because I want to access the brilliance. A lot of my
Right.
team members are neurodivergent, and I need their innovation. Community needs that innovation. But creating an environment that allows them to unmask, to be their brilliant selves, is really the question. And how do we
Yes.
collaboratively come up with those solutions? It's not me dictating what the answer is for you as a neurodivergent person. It's together, let's come up with solutions that are meaningful for us both to get to the goals. That's really the difference,
Yes, absolutely. I don't know a lot about anything in this world or the universe, but one thing that I know for sure is I can look at my son's eyes. He's completely non-communicative verbally, but he can communicate to us in other ways. And I know that little boy knows stuff about humanity and the universe that I will probably never understand. And you can see it and you can feel it when you're around him. So and to stifle that would just be, I think, would be a crime against humanity. We should try to nurture it and try to figure out how to get that out of that person, right? And help them communicate what they know to the rest of the world, because I think there's brilliance inside that cage that he's in, and so many people I think feel are in that cage and they haven't been given the opportunity to really shine.
Have you read the book, The Reason I Jump?
I have.
I love that
Yes.
book.
Yes,
Love
it is
it.
good. And the other one that I really love is Uniquely Human.
Yes.
Yep, I really like that a lot. The Reason I Jump was the very first book that I bought after we got his diagnosis.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
It changed my life. It really, my son's changed my life in all the most beautiful ways. But that's actually one of the reasons I started writing, and I started writing about neurodivergence in midlife, was because I was like, people need to understand, like, you can be kind of awoken at any time, whether that's when you're getting diagnosed at 3 or you're getting diagnosed at in my case it was 36. So like, you can be diagnosed at any time, and learn about yourself, learn about your body needs, because those stimming or challenging behaviors, your body's trying to tell you something. It doesn't have to be pathologized and so scary and bad. No, it's communicating. And so how do we feed the need before it bites us? How do we do that? So I'm excited about all these conversations, and I'm excited especially about neurodivergence in business and the innovation that's happening in business because of these differently wired brains. So yeah, I'm so thankful to be able to talk about this with you and plant the seeds for people to maybe see themselves differently.
yeah, if anybody wants to look at the history of our technology and think that Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, Woz and Steve Jobs, and Bill Gates and Elon Musk aren't a little neurally different, they're fooling themselves. Like these guys that are, with men and women, that are creating, the world that we live in at a high level and giving us stuff like cars and cool shoes to wear and all this tech. They're not run of the mill folks. They're not the 75%, right? They're the 25% of the people, and probably the 1% of that 25%, but they are wired a little bit different.
Yeah. And how beautiful that we all get to work together, right? Like, lots of the people on my team are neurodivergent or they're neurologically typical. And together, that's how we come up with the innovation, like from start to finish. We need everybody,
I think it's acceptance and communication, and openly talking about it is going to help in tremendous ways, right? So I think what you're doing is fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this for the world. I know right now you're only in your community with going on 6 staff members, but I can see that being 600 in a couple of years.
That's very kind.
If
I'm
not
really
sooner.
fortunate. I get to support lots of different clinical teams throughout Canada, and I love every minute of it. I have a lot of passion for supporting community, and I feel so thankful every day that the community asks me and invites me to walk alongside them as they're growing and learning and fill social services gaps, right? Which is what innovators do. They fill gaps in service, fill gaps in the world. So I get to do what I love best, which is pretty amazing.
Wonderful. All right. So we got the charity out of the way, all that stuff. If somebody wanted to see your artwork, how would they do that?
I have a website, and then I also have Instagram, Art by Angela Taylor. If you look it up, it'll pop right up.
Okay.
And I also have my private practice, supporting community together. .com, and so I have lots of information about neurodivergence and training, and different information about my book as well on there.
Wonderful. And what's the name of the book?
Forever on Fire, a love letter to never fitting in.
Wonderful. We'll definitely put all the links at the bottom if you're interested at all, learning more about Angela and what she's doing for her community and the globe at large. We'll put all those links in this in the description so that you can reach out to her, buy her book, or donate some money to help out this cause. It's important, and if you are a manager, boss, owner, anything along those lines, and you haven't had the opportunity to deal with somebody neurodivergent in your business yet, look into it. There's a lot of people on the planet that need work, that are totally capable of doing stuff. And in my opinion, someone that's not great at that last 2% of work, some of those kids are wildly good at that highly, highly detailed work, right? So I think they could fill a lot of huge gaps for a lot of businesses and a lot of business owners out there in the world. So again, thank you for doing everything that you do. I've had a great time talking with you today, Angela.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to join my text line community, the number is 314-370-2871. All you have to do to join that text line is send me any question about business or technology. I'll do all the research, and I'll give you an absolutely free, totally unbiased answer. Get to work.